Hi friends! Welcome back to Disabled in Nature, where we talk about all things that are disabled in nature, and sometimes we even go outside. Today we're not outside. Today we're talking about Disability Pride Month. What is Disability Pride Month, you ask? I'll tell you. Disability Pride Month is an annual celebration commemorating the signing into law of the ADA, or Americans with Disabilities Act, on July 26, 1990. That's 33 years ago today. The ADA was, and well, still is, a landmark piece of civil rights legislation that provides standards of accessibility and a legal basis to protect against discrimination for people with disabilities. 1 out of every 4 people in the United States has a disability, and it is the only minority group that anyone can join at any point in their life, from accident, injury, illness. So protecting this group of people is a big deal. We celebrate Disability Pride Month in order to commemorate and celebrate all the people that fought so hard to develop and pass the ADA. In order to understand a little bit more about the ADA and how Disability Pride Month came to be, let's go over some history. Disabled people did not always have the rights and protections that we do today under the ADA, even though the ADA is a baseline and we have still so much further to go. Still, it's important. Buses with ramps? Nuh-uh. Closed captions? I can't hear you. That big stall in the gas station that people keep putting stuff in as a storage area, but it's illegal and they shouldn't do that because I have to pee right now? No siree. Historically, disabled people have been shunned and hidden from society. Many were forced to live in horrendous and inhumane conditions in institutions, and others were forced into isolation at home under the Ugly Laws. Ugly Laws were basically sets of regulations in cities across the United States that ranged from 1876 to 1974 that prohibited people with physical disabilities and other morphological distances from being seen in public. And if they did go outside, if they were seen in public, they were arrested. So, not a great time to be disabled. Before the ADA, children with disabilities were not able to attend schools because of inaccessible buildings and curriculums. They were often segregated into special schools or denied an education altogether. Disabled people were barred from public places due to inaccessible infrastructure and lack of accessible public transportation. The disability rights movement began in the 1960s and 70s as a response to the larger civil rights movement going on at the time, and as a way to challenge the inaccessibility and discrimination that they faced when trying to access public spaces and services. If you want to hear great stories about the disability rights movement that they don't teach you in history class in school, I highly recommend that you watch the film Crip Camp. It's on Netflix. And if you know me or you spent any time around me, you know that I advocate this film to literally everyone that I know, that I meet, strangers in the grocery store. I want everyone to watch this film because it's awesome. It's about a group of people that met at a camp for teens with disabilities and how they banded together when they got older to be titans of the disabled rights movement. The film includes the story of Judy Heumann, who was coined the mother of the disability rights movement. The community sadly lost Judy earlier this year in March. But if you want to learn more about her life, you can check out her memoir. I have it on the shelf back here. It's called Being Human. It's amazing, just like Judy was. She did so much for me and so many others in her advocacy and her fights for rights. There's no amount of words that I could say to thank her and the other disabled activists that work to get accessibility and anti-discrimination laws for people with disabilities passed. They made it so that I could grow up in a more accessible and inclusive society than they did, and I will be eternally grateful. But back to the history. So the first big disability rights laws in the United States was introduced as something called Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. Section 504 had a provision in it that basically stated that you could not discriminate on the basis of disability if you were a part of any federal agency or if you received federal funds. This was a game changer, but the person who needed to sign them in order for them to be passed into law was not doing it. In response, and I cannot express to you how badass this is to me, a group of more than 150 people from across the spectrum of disabilities occupied the California Capitol building for 25 days. They refused to leave until the regulations were passed. They stayed there for 25 days. People with all kinds of disabilities joined in the sit-in. Wheelchair users came and stayed, sometimes even without their personal care attendants. I don't know if you've ever had a physical disability, but staying somewhere where you can't get your basic needs met and sleeping on the floor is not pleasant and can often result in pressure sores that are painful and dangerous and potentially life-threatening. And these people did that for 25 days. Deaf and hard of hearing people that attended the sit-in helped communicate with the outside after communications were shut off to the building by signing out the window to other people that knew ASL. People made makeshift refrigerators by putting boxes over air conditioners to keep vital medications cold. It's a really, really cool story of determination and resilience that just lights me on fire and pumps me up. So if you're looking for some motivation to fight for your civil rights, seriously, watch Crip Camp. Just do it. And thank me later. It's just like, it's such a good movie. It's such a good movie. Anyway, where was I? Yes, the sit-in was successful and the 504 regulations were passed, but it wasn't enough. These regulations only applied to institutions that were run by the federal government or that received federal funds. So private businesses and employers could still discriminate on the basis of disability. And we don't like that. So fast forward to 1990, and the ADA has been drafted but not passed into law yet. One of the most impactful demonstrations that led to the passing of the ADA was held on March 12th, 1990, and it was called the Capitol Crawl. This demonstration is also featured in the documentary Crip Camp. Seriously, just go watch it. But basically, it was, again, one of the biggest shows of badassery on the planet, where a bunch of disabled people and activists abandoned their mobility devices at the base of the Capitol steps because, surprise, there was no accessible route into the Capitol building. There were only stairs. There was no ramp. And they crawled up the Capitol steps. The footage of this demonstration is honestly really emotional for me to watch because for a group that had been forced into the shadows, forced into anonymity, to do such a public display of courage, tenacity, struggle, and resilience is just... I get really emotional thinking about it because I know what it's like to live in a world that's not built for you. And when I watch that footage, I can feel the passion that they felt fighting for their rights in that moment. And it just really pumps me up, you know? Seriously, watch Crip Camp. Go do it right now. Turn this video off. Go watch it. Clearly the demonstration worked because after decades of struggle and advocating, the Americans with Disabilities Act, or the ADA, was signed into law on July 26th, 1990. And now, to commemorate the struggles and the triumphs of our disabled activist predecessors, we celebrate Disability Pride Month. Every July is a celebration of the determination and resilience of the disabled activists that came before us. We even have a flag. But Disability Pride is also so much more. Disability Pride is about claiming an identity that the world tells you that you shouldn't claim, that you should be ashamed of, and that you should hide. I grew up in a culture that didn't talk about disability, and as my condition progressed and I became less and less able-bodied over time, I did feel like I shouldn't talk about it, like I should be ashamed, and like I should hide it, and like I should reject it. And that feeling sucked. It wasn't until I met a friend who also used a wheelchair and we connected and we found that community with each other that I realized that my disability was nothing to be ashamed of. And that disability wasn't a bad word. You can say it. Say disabled. It's fine, I promise. It took a lot of time to work on myself and realize this and become a person that is proud of my disability. But today, I think I can happily say that I am, and I've done that. I still have my rough moments, and there is always going to be grief associated with a condition that gradually causes you to lose your abilities. But I don't feel despair about my future anymore like I once did. I feel like moving forward through my life, no matter what abilities I lose or what is thrown my way, I'll be able to deal with it. And I can be proud of who I am and what I can do. My disability, sure, has taken some things from me, like running, walking, and this arm is getting more precarious by the day. But my disability has also given me so much. It's given me friends I never would have had. It's forced me to work on my communication skills. If you need to ask people for help all the time, it's probably a good idea to develop how to do that. It has made me a more empathetic person who is compassionate towards other people's struggles. My disability has enriched my life in ways that I will probably spend a lifetime discovering. And I think that's beautiful. And I am proud of the things that my disability has made me. So how can you celebrate Disability Pride Month? Let me tell you. There are so many awesome ways that everyone can celebrate Disability Pride Month. You can support disability-owned businesses. I'll link a few of my favorites down below. You can support disability-related causes. One of my favorites is this nonprofit called Laughing at My Nightmare, and it provides adaptive equipment and other necessities to people living with muscular dystrophies, like me. You can advocate for accessibility in your local area. Frequent a coffee shop with a step out front. Lobby them into installing a ramp. Go to the theater often. Encourage them to offer some performances with ASL interpretation. You're an employer. Be flexible with your employees and hire people with disabilities. The list is endless, but I think that one of the most important and easiest things that you can do is follow disabled creators online and listen to their stories. I have so many favorites. I will link some of them down below in the description. Every disabled person is different, and every person with a disability has different access needs. Taking the time to listen to the variety of different experiences that people with disabilities have can help you better identify accessibility barriers in your own life and perhaps advocate to remove them. If we are all on the lookout for inaccessibility and committed to breaking down barriers when we find them, then we're all going to create a more accessible and inclusive world together. All right, friends, thank you so much for hanging out with me for a little while today to talk about Disability Pride Month. If you liked this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more thrilling content. Leave me a comment below about your thoughts on Disability Pride Month. Do you vibe with it? Does it make you uncomfortable? Is this the first you're hearing about Disability Pride Month? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Disability is such a complex and nuanced experience, and it's different for everyone. And I'm curious to know where you're at in your journey. All right, that's gonna be it for this one, friends. Go make some cupcakes and sing the ADA happy birthday. It would like it, and so would I. Go hug a ramp, kick an ableist. Don't do that. Don't kick an ableist. So, yeah. Until next time, friends, be well. Don't forget to get outside. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.